My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Intro to State Government Contracting with SBSD, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network in partnership with the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We will adjust them during and at the end of the session. We have also enabled a live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Angela Barber, Business Services Manager for the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. With over 25 years of marketing, strategic planning, and economic development experience, Angela is responsible for business development and outreach for Hampton Roads, the Peninsula, and the Eastern Shore. Prior to her employment with the Commonwealth of Virginia, Angela worked for the City of Chesapeake's Economic Development Department for 17 years. She began her employment with the city in 1999 as Marketing Research Specialist and spent the last 9 years of her tenure as Business Development Manager, focusing on small women and minority-owned business development and entrepreneurship. As Business Services Manager for the Virginia SBSD, Angela provides business development resources, counseling, services, training, and technical assistance with the state's certification program, SWaM, for small business owners interested in doing business with the Commonwealth of Virginia. She also serves as buyer advocate for state agencies in her service area to help connect small businesses to contracting opportunities. And helping her today will be Chris Lay, who will be handling some questions and dropping some links in the chat for you all, which I know will come in handy. So please join me in welcoming Chris and our speaker, Angela Barber.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. And Sheila, thank you, as always, for a wonderful introduction. As always, my colleague, Chris Lay, is on with me today, excuse me, and we will be tag teaming to answer any questions that you have following today's presentation. So today we're going to be talking about the introduction to State of Virginia government contracting. So we're going to be touching base on how to register and how to sign up for the bidding platform EVA, and we're going to be covering how to apply for SWaM certification. So hopefully everyone can see the screen that I'm sharing. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. So like most agencies, we have a mission. And the mission of the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity is to provide education and assistance, economic opportunity, and access to capital to generate employment and economic growth for small businesses. So we have different divisions, several divisions within our agency. These agencies or these divisions provide specific services to support our small business community. We provide access to capital through our Virginia Small Business Financing Authority. This is our in-house lending division, and there are several loan options that are available for our small businesses to help them grow and expand. Business development and outreach. That is the division that Chris and I, along with 3 other colleagues, that we work in this division. For business development and outreach, we support all economic development and business development through workshops and training, just like this one. We also provide access to resources. Without our resource partners, we can't provide all of this great information to our businesses. And then we also do one-on-one business counseling sessions. Those sessions are where we schedule at least up to an hour to talk with you about your business, to answer any questions, to address any challenges you may have, to connect you to any resources that you need to help with your business. We also provide SWaM certification. Certification is for our micro, our small, our women, our minority-owned, as well as our service-disabled veteran. And we also have our DBE Enterprise, which is our federal certification for projects funded by the federal government that are through VDOT and are tied to transportation-related projects. We also have our Sourcing and Compliance Division. This division is our strategic sourcing support of SWaM participation. This division works very closely with our state buyers to help make sure that they are utilizing all the resources necessary to reach out and buy from our SWaM businesses. So there are 2 steps a small business owner could take in order to position his or her company to have the best advantage to bid on and possibly be awarded contracts with the state of Virginia, our colleges and universities, and many of our local governments. So the cities, our local municipalities who utilize our certification. So the first step is you want to register an EVA. This is Virginia's online electronic procurement system. So what is EVA? This is our e-procurement portal. This is a tool that's used by the Commonwealth of Virginia for all of our purchasing activity. EVA is also used to announce bidding opportunities, to get quotes, to place orders for goods and services. Within the EVA network, you have over 245 state agencies, colleges, and universities. There's also over 700 local governments that also utilize the EVA platform. And there's over 13,000 EVA users. So we want to kind of define what a small purchase is as under the EVA. So for purchases that are $10,000 and under, the method for those small purchases is to receive a single quote. We also have award priorities for purchases under 10,000. So if the business is certified as a micro business, and that dictates that that single quote method should be first awarded to a business that is certified as a micro. And for purchases 10,000 up to $100,000, that is a competitive bid. That is the method to purchase. And the award priority is for businesses first that are certified as small. For purchases over $100,000, there's 2 ways that we can purchase. These are considered large purchases. One is an invitation for bid, an IFB. These are competitive sealed bids. They have specific terms, very detailed specifications, and it's awarded based on price, so the lowest bid. Also, for purchases over 100,000, for these large purchases, request for a proposal, which is an RFP. These are purchased through competitive negotiation. The vendor proposes the solution. There's usually 2 or more offers are selected for the negotiation, and the award is made to the best overall proposal. So in this case, it's not the lowest bid, but the best overall proposal. So what do you need to register in EVA? Well, you need to have an EIN number. That's your Federal Employee Identification Number. You also need what is our Virginia Substitute W-9 form. Now, this link is found on the EVA supplier registration page. You want to make sure that you print it, you complete it, and that it has your original signature before you scan and upload it back into your EVA profile. And then you also want to make sure that you have your commodity codes or your NIGP codes. Commodity codes are goods and services. If you are a service provider, your codes should always start with the number 9. So as an example, if you provide janitorial services, your code will be 91039. In the screenshot, you see EVA's homepage with several icons to direct you where you need to go on the website. as you can see, we have highlighted the register now. This is how you will register for EVA. It's really easy to get to. The website is eva.virginia.gov. And you always want to make sure that you spell out Virginia. I also recommend clicking on the icon, I sell to Virginia, because that's what you want to do. You're trying to sell your goods and your services to the state of Virginia. So there's two options for being able to look up your NIGP code. One of the ways you can access that is to simply scroll to the bottom of the page, and under Tools, you will see the NIGP code lookup. Okay. You can also, if you're on the EVA homepage, if you click on the resources, you will get a drop-down box. You can also select the NIGP code lookup from there as well. Once you're inside the NIGP code lookup page, and this will open up a separate tab in your browser, you will be able to search by keywords. And as you can see from the screenshot, this is just an example of what those codes and the descriptions look like. So again, commodity codes, they describe your products and services. It also tells EVA buyers what you sell. And this is, you are matched to bid opportunities based on your NIGP code. And again, as a reminder, services always start with the number 9. The screenshot is just another example of our classification codes, but there are also subcodes underneath the hyperlinked codes. So anything that has the zeros behind it is your master category. And if you click on that, it will open up to show you those subcodes. So if you provide consulting services, when you click on the link, it will open up into a subcategory. You want to choose the codes that best describe the services and goods that you provide. And you can have as many codes as necessary to describe your goods and services. So you don't have to sit with one code. If there are more codes that describe what it is that you sell, you want to use as many codes as necessary to do that. EVA also does training. This training is free. And to access the workshops, it's simply go back to the EVA's homepage, scroll about halfway down, and you will see the EVA vendor outreach events. Okay, again, the training is free, it's virtual, and they are offered just about every Wednesday. So you have workshop 1, which is the intro to selling, and you also have the generating leads, which is workshop 2. You want to make sure that you take workshop 1 before taking the advanced workshop. And if you miss one, they repeat themselves. So there will always be a training for you to be able to sign up for, and they're via Zoom. Okay. If you need technical assistance with EVA, having login problems, or you're getting some errors, you want to reach directly out to EVA customer care. And they've provided information on how to contact them. And if you are the supplier, so you just want to click the link to request the form, identify what the issue is, and someone from the EVA customer care team will reach back out to you. The second step is to apply for certification. So under our department, the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity, our certification division processes both the SWaM certification as well as the DBE certification. You must meet the eligibility requirements. You must be a for-profit business. And depending on whether or not you are applying for SWaM, DBE, you can apply for both of those if you meet the eligibility requirements for those certifications. And keep in mind that when applying for both SWaM and DBE, they are 2 different processes. SWaM certification takes about 3 months to process. The DBE could take 4 to 5 months to process because it is a federal certification which also requires a different set of paperwork, and it also requires a site visit. So if you are applying for DBE as well as SWaM, the DBE will be processed before your SWaM certification. So you also want to make sure that you reach out to your local DBE outreach manager to make sure that you meet the criteria to apply and that it is a certification that's beneficial to your business, okay? The purpose of the DBE certification is to increase the participation of certified DBEs, again, in projects that are federally funded. So when we talk about those projects, they include heavy construction, such as building and designing roads, bridges, railroads, ports, and airports. And if anybody is on today that's from the Hampton Roads area, if you go back and forth through the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, this is one of those projects that has a SWaM goal as well as a DBE goal. So for SWaM certification, the SWaM again is for our small, our women-owned, and a minority-owned, which we call our SWaM certification. This is the Commonwealth of Virginia's Small Business Program. The SWaM certification is to enhance procurement and contracting opportunities for SWaM businesses participating in state-funded projects. However, as mentioned before, we do have local government that also utilize our SWaM certification to meet their procurement needs. So just want to go over some of the designations for the SWaM, the definition for those designations. So to be a small business, you must have no more than 250 employees or no more than 10 million in gross receipts averaged over a 3-year period. So that means that even if your business has more than 10 million in revenue, if you have less than 250 employees, by definition, you are still a small business. For woman-owned business, at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women who are U.S. citizens or legal residents. And by the way, for all of our SWaM designations, you must be a U.S. citizen or a legal resident. So woman-owned, it's not just in name, but it is in the control and the operation of the daily management of that business. And depending on the industry and whether that business is an LLC or a corporation and how the bylaws or the operating agreement are written, we look at all of that to determine that the 51% is in control of the daily operations of that business. The minority-owned designation, 51% owned and controlled by one or more minorities. And then our micro business certification. So no more than 25 employees and no more than 3 million. So for the small designation, it's an or 250 employees or less, or no more than 10 million. And for the micro, it's an and factor. So it simply means you have to meet both criteria to be a micro business. For our service disabled veteran, that's 51% owned and controlled by one or more service disabled veterans. So the service disabled veteran designation comes from the Department of Veteran Affairs. When we certify under the service disabled veteran, it is not based on the percentage of your disability. However, the state of Virginia still needs to verify that you are currently service disabled veteran. So there is one small step that you do have to do and submit a document to the Virginia Department of Veteran Services for them to verify that you are currently service disabled veteran. We also have our employment service organizations, or our ESOs. ESOs are organizations that provide community-based employment services to individuals with disabilities. These organizations must also be approved under the National Commission on Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities, otherwise known as CARF. Employment service organizations, a few examples, Goodwill, the Salvation Army. Depending on where you are in the state of Virginia, we have Portco services that provide, provide employment for individuals with disabilities. The ESOs also have services and goods that are marketable to the state of Virginia. So when they apply for the designation as an ESO, that provides an opportunity for them also to sell to our state agencies. So for our federally recognized designations, so we cannot certify a business in any of the designations that you see on the screen. These certifications are offered and processed by the SBA, which is the Small Business Administration. SBSD, our agency, we cannot certify you in any of these certifications. However, we will recognize them along with your SWaM certification. So we do provide a checkbox in the SWaM application to include the 4 designations here on the screen. If you check one or any of these boxes, we will ask you to upload your SBA approval letter. So remember, we will recognize the federal designations. However, our agency does not certify in these certifications. So the SWaM certification is now done online through our certification application portal. Prior to 2017, it was a completely manual and paper process. However, paper applications are no longer accepted. This application is completed online and all of your documents are also uploaded into the SWaM application portal. The standard processing time is 60 business days from the receipt of a complete application. So 60 business days equates to 90 calendar days, which is about 3 months. And the SWaM certification approval is good for 5 years. So that means that the certification will expire 5 years from the date of your approval. And you will receive a notification as far out as 120 days from expiration. So you want to make sure you're checking your email or you mark your calendar for the date of expiration, because when you receive that notification, at that time, you may go in and start the process for recertification. So in order to apply for SWaM certification, along with completing the questions in the application, here are some of the supporting documents that you will need. Everyone applying, the 51% or more, must provide proof of identification. So that is your driver's license. If you don't drive, it's a state ID. For proof of U.S. citizenship or permanent residency, we're looking for a birth certificate, a current passport. Some may have their permanent residency or their certificate of naturalization. Documented proof of the owner's contribution to the business. So in other words, what did you spend or what did the owners spend to start that business? And that should be based on their percentage of ownership. There should also be a resume for all of the owners and officers of the business. You want to make sure that your resume is in chronological order. You want to list your previous work history. You also want to list previous education. Make sure that your business is on that resume as well. Also, we're going to ask for copies of professional licenses and permits. So where the industry indicates that you must have a professional license, such as construction, should be a contractor's license. If you do catering or provide food services, there's a Safe Serve permit. Some industries do not require you to have a professional license. In some cases, a business license, depending on your city and where your business is located, if it's required, a business license may also be uploaded in this section. We're also going to ask you for your business tax returns for the most current year and the previous 2 years. So for the definition of small and micro, this is how we get the revenue information, by requesting those business tax returns for the most recent 3 years. Now, if you are a new business and you have not yet filed taxes, you may still apply. You would just will not have the tax information at that time. If it is a current tax year and you have not filed a tax return, but you have filed your extension, you may upload that for the current year as well. We also ask for the first page of the 941, which is the employer's quarterly federal tax return for the most recent 4 quarters. So the 941 is what is reported quarterly to the IRS for the number of employees that a business has. Now, these are W-2 employees. Okay, if you pay a paycheck to your employees and you take out those taxes and you report them on a 941. Owners, you are not an employee of your company unless you are reported on the 941. So some of the things that kind of trip individuals up when they're applying is that they will put the number of employees in the application, and then they will say that they don't know what a 941 is, or they don't file one. So just make sure that you are filing. If you're filing a 941, enter that number of employees. 1099ers are subcontractors. They pay their own taxes, so they are not included in the 941. So some of the additional documents that are going to be required are going to also be based on how that business is structured. So for corporations, there's quite a few documents that we ask for. Your certificate of incorporation and your articles of incorporation. These are also public documents that are found on the SCC, the State Corporation Commission's website for the state of Virginia. So if you don't have a copy, simply go to scc.virginia.gov, search for your company, and go to the filing history, and you will see the certificate as well as the articles. You should also have corporate bylaws and any amendments. The corporate bylaws provide information about who has the voting rights, the number of shares, who's in control of the business, how many are needed for a quorum. The minutes from your most recent stockholder and board meeting. So even if you are a corporation with one owner, you should still be having a board meeting. Both sides of your stock certificates. The stock certificates are typically issued in the name of each owner, and it also has the number of shares. However, if no stock certificates were issued, it's a statement that says no stock certificate was issued. However, your stock ledger is required. The stock ledger keeps track of the number of owners, each owner's shares, and anytime those shares have been reallocated within that corporation. If you are an LLC, limited liability company, not as many documents, but just as important. Your certificate of organization, as well as your articles of organization and any amendments. Again, these documents can be found on the SCC website, which is public. And we're also going to ask you for your operating agreement. Now, if you are the only owner, meaning you're the single member of an LLC, we do not require you to have an operating agreement. So if this is the case and you don't have an operating agreement, it's a statement that simply says, I am the managing member, or I am the only owner of whatever the name of the company is, LLC, and I do not have an operating agreement. Just date and sign, and that's what you will upload. But that's only if you are the only owner of the LLC. If you are a sole proprietor, we're going to ask you for your current business license. We're also going to ask you for your certificate of assumed or fictitious name if you are doing business under another name. Most sole proprietors, your legal business name is your name. However, you might be doing business under a trade name or doing business as. As an example, you might be John Doe doing business as JD's Automotive. If that's the case, you want to make sure that you have your certificate of assumed or fictitious name. And to obtain that is simply going to the SCC and filing for your certificate of assumed or fictitious name. I think it costs about $10. Franchises. We do certify franchises because franchisees are individual business owners with their own unique EIN numbers. So in addition to your documents based on your structure, we're also going to ask you for that franchise agreement. Whether it's 1 page or 100, you must upload that document. And trust me, our certification officers, they do read every page that's been uploaded. If you are a partner in a business, you should have a partnership agreement. You want to make sure that all of your agreements are dated and signed properly. So just a couple of screenshots to show you how to access the certification portal. It's really easy to get to. If you go to our website, sbsd.virginia.gov, and hover over certification and click apply now, it will bring you to the certification portal page. And like most portals or databases that you need to access, you need to have a login and a password. So once you get to our portal, you will need to click on register. And when you click on register, we're going to ask you for specific information. We need your full name, creator username, and a password. You also want to give us an email. Make sure it's an email address that you check on a regular basis, because you will get notifications from the SWaM portal. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have the correct email address. And then you want to click on register. Once you click on register, you will be sent an email, and it usually happens in about a minute. So you want to check your email, and you want to look for an email from the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. What you want to do is you want to click on confirm your account. Once you click on confirm your account, you will be prompted to now log in to the portal with your new login information. Once you are in the portal, the application queue, what you see here is a screenshot of the application queue. If you are just creating your application for the first time, once you log in, you will see an opportunity to link or create a new application. Linking the application are for those that are recertifying or may have started an application but not yet created a login and password in the new portal. But if you are applying as new, once you click the new application, regardless, we're going to ask you for your EIN number. Everything we do in the certification portal is based on your EIN number. So you want to put in your EIN number and you want to click next. The system will search for you to make sure you don't already have an application in the system. If for some chance it asks you for a certification number, that means you already have an application in the system. If that should happen and you don't have your cert number, feel free to reach out to myself or to Chris, or even to our customer service, and they'll be happy to give that to you. Once you have accessed the application, what you're looking at now is the first page of the process. The first thing that we want to do is we want to know what designations you are applying for. And you can check the box for all of the designations that you are applying for, okay? Once you have completed the first part of the application, which is answering questions about your company, you're going to tell us how your business is structured, how many employees, who the contacts are, owner information. You will also be required to upload any supporting documents. Every document has a home, and that simply means that for whatever document we're asking you for, there will be a place to upload it. So if your document has multiple pages, you want to make sure that you have the ability to be able to scan those pages together to create a file. We can accept everything from a PDF to a JPEG. So if you need to take a photo of driver's license or birth certificates, you can do that. I would just say, make sure that the file, your resolution is on the lowest so that it doesn't create a file that's too large. But every document has a specific place to be uploaded. Okay. So once your application has been submitted, in order to check the status of your application, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. From our web page, and it's now under, it's now been updated. So it actually says quick links. And under the quick links, there is a certification status check. When you click on this, it will allow you to put in your company name or your certification number. And it's going to give you some basic information: pending, in review, closed, expired. However, for you as an applicant, the best way to check the status is simply to log back into your application. Once you're in the processing portal, click on your name, which is your actual application, and you will see the screenshot here in the lower left corner. This is actually the last screen that you see once you have submitted your application. To the left, this is your information that tells you the date and time stamp. And to the right is a basic guideline or a processing timeline for your application. So I would suggest that this would be the best way for you to check the status. I will say, do not click on edit or try to resubmit the application. What you don't want to do is resubmit the application once it's already in the been submitted, because it will change the date of your application submission. So some of the advantages to SWaM certification. Priority of awards. The two priorities that we talked about earlier are for the micro designation and the small designation for our certifications. And you will see these priorities of award also in EVA for specific solicitations marked in red. There's also opportunities for small businesses based on the lowest price, again, via quick quotes or for an invitation to bid. And you can submit your quick quote within EVA. There's a quick quote tool, and there's a tutorial on that, and it's also discussed in the EVA workshops. And we also have small business utilization plans, which is basically a SWaM plan. So if there is a prime contractor that's bidding on a state, a large state project, in addition to submitting their request for proposal, they also have to submit a plan with the list of companies that are going to be SWaM companies that will be subbing on that particular project. Okay, so remember that SWaM certification provides the opportunity to do business with the state of Virginia, our public colleges and universities, as well as many local governments. EVA is the tool to access the state contracting opportunities. And these are those localities that utilize EVA. You must be registered as a vendor to bid on contract opportunities. And remember you want to make sure that your NIGP codes are correct, and they should be the same in your SWaM application as well in your EVA profile. And remember, you may have multiple codes, and our team is available to help you or assist you if you have some difficulty with finding your NIGP codes. You do not have to be SWaM certified to register in EVA. So our agency provides certification assistance in a couple different ways. We have our customer service team, which is in Richmond. You may call the number. They're good. They can answer basic questions. However, if you need technical assistance, they will ask you, what city are you located in? And they will connect you with your business service manager. So that is the end of my presentation. That is my contact information. Again, I cover the Hampton Roads area, which is everything from the Eastern Shore up to Williamsburg. And Chris, who's on with me today, she covers Northern Virginia. So Chris, you can always tell them what area you cover as well in terms of Northern Virginia. And I think that with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop my share and come back to the camera. And I think that we have quite a few questions, and Chris looks like she's been doing a great job with answering them.
Right. Chris has been busy.
Stop, Angela.
Awesome.
Angela, thank you. Yeah, we do have a couple questions. If you want to go ahead and handle these live, I'll go ahead and read them out.
Okay.
First one, please discuss the types of opportunities set aside for small businesses. Are IT or consulting opportunities ever set aside? Also, what percentage approximately of full and open solicitations are won by SWAMs? That was a lot.
Okay, yeah, so that's kind of a couple of answers there. So as far as IT or consulting opportunities, that is not determined, the set aside is not determined specifically by the actual service or good. Again, it's the set aside, which we call set aside, but it's the priority to award. So for purchases under $10,000, those are specifically for businesses that are micro. So remember, it's based on the amount of the award, which is one of the things that we had talked about in the earlier slides. To find out if IT or consulting opportunities are services that are purchased, it's utilizing those tools in EVA. It's working with myself or Chris to determine whether or not those services are purchased. Now, I will tell you for IT, we have our own IT division, the Virginia Information Technology Agency. And under that agency, there are a lot of small businesses that already have contracts in place. So we have to buy specifically off the contracts that are already in place. But there is a way to tell in EVA what those contracts are and when those contracts expire. Okay, and then what percentage of full and open solicitations are won by SWaMs? I would say based on the fiscal year, so 42% is our budget goal. That is an aspirational goal. So we should be spending about 42% of our budget with businesses that are SWaM. So we do track that activity. So if you go out to our website, sbsd.virginia.gov, and go to our expenditure dashboard, this is public information. And so that is a good way to take a look and see how many solicitations or those purchase orders that are being won by SWAMs. And I'm happy to walk anybody through that process as well.
Wonderful. Okay, next question. Can you apply for a DBE if fiscal year 2024 taxes are not complete and they've applied for an extension?
So I am not a DBE outreach specialist because I don't do the DBE side of that. I can tell you on the SWaM side of that, for the most recent year would be 2024. And if you have not filed, but have filed for an extension, yes, on the SWaM side, it is allowed. But I can't answer that question without talking to a DBE outreach manager, unless Chris knows that as well.
Let's see.
I believe the answer is going to be no.
Okay.
DBE regulations are very strict. There is a number, you have to meet a revenue. I think there's a revenue requirement there. So but I would reach out to a DBE expert for that. If you need assistance with DBE, reach out to either Angie or myself, and we can refer you to the right person.
Fabulous. Let's see. Is there a business category code, an NIGP code that would be best to help finding more opportunities if I'm purchasing items and supplies for agencies?
Okay, so
that was Jeff's question. You see that?
Jeff, so we would be the purchasers, you would be the supplier. And so it depends. So if your business sells supplies, it depends. You can have a code for every single supply that you provide. Or there are what we call general lines. Like for instance, if you do janitorial, there is a general line for janitorial supplies. There is a general code for office supplies. So it depends on what it is that you're specifically selling. I know that there is a vendor, I've seen a couple of vendors. There's one that has like almost 300 codes because they have a warehouse and they have all of their codes listed. Okay.
Let's see. Do SWaM registered companies get priority? Are there any preferences for C Corp, LLC, S Corp, etc.?
So no, remember the priority is based off of the being micro for purchases under 10,000. So for instance, if I needed to do catering for 25 people and I needed box lunches, that's under $10,000. So, but in our purchasing rules state that I have to use a micro certified vendor So that is the preference. Under 10,000, I must use a micro certified vendor for my catering. Okay. But the preference is not based on how the business is structured. Okay. And so again, and for other purchases for 10, I think it's 10,000 up to 100,000, the priority that is for small certified. So if I'm a buyer and I've posted a solicitation that says this is a priority or two award for a small business, my job, my due diligence as a buyer is to look at all of those bids that come in and to look at first who is certified as small. So we're looking at the certification, who's certified, and if they meet the requirements of that solicitation. So not based on structure, but the priority to award, again, is based on being micro and or small.
So we have another question here. It says, I'm registered in EVA and SWaM certified. Do you have recommendations for standing out to clients?
So there's a couple of ways that we recommend that you do that. And it really means being active in EVA. One is if, depending on what it is, the goods and services that you provide, if there are pre-bid meetings. Pre-bid meetings are great because that allows you to be in front of not only the buyer, but any other primes that might be in the room or any other small businesses that give you an opportunity to network with as well. So pre-bid meetings is going to be one of them. The other is looking at those opportunities. For every solicitation that is posted in EVA, there's a buyer. There's a buyer that's attached to that solicitation. So in some cases, you may want to reach out to those buyers, even if it's for a solicitation that's already been awarded. Because suppose your company could have provided that service. Well, that buyer is not going to know who you are if they don't know who you are. So those are some of the things that we talk about when we sit down or we have a one-on-one with the business. It's how to make a connection with those buyers.
Let's see. Do Virginia-based businesses have advantages in Virginia contracting versus out-of-state businesses?
So we can do business, depends. It depends. I have seen contracts for companies outside. The SWaM certification was provided specifically for businesses in the state of Virginia. However, we can certify companies that are outside the state of Virginia if Virginia has reciprocity with that particular state, which allows that business to also certify in Virginia if they're certified. So there's no preference. I mean, it's a small business program for Virginia businesses, but other companies outside the state of Virginia that are certified under our program, they also have that opportunity as well.
Do you see the need for mental health providers for contracts?
It depends on the agency. So that is something that not off the top of my head that I can tell you, because every agency is going to purchase goods and services based on their needs. Now, remember, we have over 200 agencies and every need is going to be different. But one of the ways to find out is matching or finding your NIGP codes and using those codes to go through the EVA opportunities page and search to find purchase orders, or to find out if there's been any agencies that are purchasing the services that you provide based off of your NIGP code.
If you are a micro business certified, are you automatically considered also as a small business for contracts between 10 and 100K?
If you are micro, not every business that's small is micro. So just kind of keep that in mind. But it is a bidding process. So you have to bid. You can't be considered unless you respond. So for the under 10,000, typically those may not be posted on EVA. If I needed that catering service, that's not a solicitation that's going to be posted in EVA. I'm going directly to my SWaM directory to look for my micro vendor. Okay, so you are not automatically considered that way. But if I am looking for that micro vendor, all I have to do is get my quote. So yes, you can be considered for that. But if it's for purchases that are 10,000 up to 100,000, that is going to be a solicitation. And Chris, if I'm incorrect on that, please let me know.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can answer this question. Do you know the context for Elizabeth City, North Carolina? Or can you point are tending in the right direction.
So we are the state of Virginia. So we don't cover outside the state of Virginia. However, if someone outside the state of Virginia reaches out to SBSD and they want to become SWaM certified, any one of the business service managers, I'm right here in Hampton Roads. So 9 times out of 10, North Elizabeth City is literally across 45 minutes from me. So you feel free to reach out to me for any questions you might have if you're in Elizabeth City.
Fabulous. I have a healthcare home care business LLC. Who could I connect to get connected for government contracting?
Depends on what city you're located in. Is that Catherine? So depending on where your city is, again, there's 5 of us across the state of Virginia. All of us can help you, but we do recommend connecting with your business service manager, because while all of us can help you with SWaM, I can't provide resources outside of my area. So Chris is in Northern Virginia. So if you're in Northern Virginia, not only is Chris going to help you with SWaM or registering in EVA, she's also going to connect you to resources in your specific area.
Okay, great. Let's see. This is Anvar's question. So do all IT software contracts awarded through VITA, Virginia IT Agency, to contractors that have standing purchasing contract with it? Do you see that? I'm gonna let you read that one and
Yeah.
see if you can understand it better than I can.
So do all IT contracts awarded through VITA that have standing purchasing contracts with them, can you bid on those contracts? So no, they're already standing contracts. So for instance, if you go into the VITA there and under EVA, there is a section that says for mandatory contracts. When you hover over that, there is one specifically for VITA. Anyone can go there. It's open. EVA is open. It's open. So you can go and search. If, say, for instance, you provide, I don't know, software, and you type in the search for software, it's going to come back with a list of every single business that the state already has a contract with. So the only time we can go outside of those contracts is if that particular vendor can't provide what it is that we need. So you will not be able to bid on those contracts until they've expired and they put them back out there. So you do want to look on those contracts and look at the terms, because there might be one that says with an option to renew. It's a 4-year with an option to renew. And so that's, again, you have to look at the expiration date to see when that contract is going to be put back out there. So you can't bid on them until they are actually posted back in EVA again.
So I'm on Paul's question now. My wife and I provide housing and care for residential-based seniors, service and care. Is that a type of business that Virginia needs? So let's see, the wife is a nurse, wants to expand into caring for children, the same type of housing. I know that Virginia also has homes for this type of care, but we do not know where to search for these contract services.
Okay, so again, the state of Virginia is not going to buy housing. They're not going to provide that type. They don't pay for that specific care because that's direct to the client. However, you do have the Department of Behavioral Services, and you have Department of Aging and Rehabilitation. You have some of our state hospitals. So while there might not be a specific contract for that, it could be a point of referral, because a lot of times those agencies are working more locally with your community services board, your health department, and sometimes you might have communities that do senior living and things of that sort. So I have seen companies that have received contracts for these type of services if an agency has a program. And so again, it would be working with you to get your NIGP codes and doing a search in EVA. So in a lot of cases, I usually tell people the best place to start is in your backyard and starting in your locality, and start with your community services board, your health department, and any senior programs as well. Okay.
All right, so we have a bunch of questions and we have about 6 minutes.
Okay.
So Angela, since you see the questions, do you want to roll through and see
Yeah.
which would be the most beneficial for everyone? to-
I saw someone's question is, are all SWAMs created equal? If a SWAM is based in Maryland versus Virginia, is there any difference in the treatment? So it's not, I don't say that there's a difference in the treatment. It's your ability to be able to bid on a contract and be able to provide the services, the goods, in that contract. So again, if a Maryland business bids and a Virginia business bids on a solicitation, it's going to be based on the type of solicitation and your ability to provide what we're asking for, how we're asking for, and if you meet the price. So all bids are going to be reviewed. They're not separated because this is from Maryland and this is from Virginia. They're going to consider all of the bids if they're meet the criteria when it's submitted. Okay. Let's see. I am just kind of going through here. It says I guess submitted a quote to an agency and they decided to move forward. What is the process to move forward once this is entered into the EVA system? And so that is not a question I can answer because I'm not a buyer. Okay, so there is going to be a process. Not every agency, not every buyer takes the same amount of time. Every agency process, the buyers will process based on that need. So I don't know how long that process is. Okay, if you have submitted a quote and if you are awarded, they will notify you directly. Okay, they will notify you directly. But if you have a question about that process, if you've submitted a quote, what did I say earlier? On every solicitation, there's a buyer. Feel free to reach out to that buyer and then ask them what the next steps are. Okay. Let's see. How can I become a Microsoft certified vendor? Do I need to apply a separate certification? So Microsoft certification is an industry specific certification from Microsoft. So you have to go through Microsoft to be certified. Okay. So that is different than being a SWaM certified vendor. If you are Microsoft certified and you are applying for SWaM, you want to make sure that those are credentials that you include with your SWaM application. Okay. Let's see. I'm going through here. We are a Virginia business, but have not done any business with the Commonwealth. We have federal and other, I don't know, SLED experience. Will this help with past performance in the Commonwealth? How best do we leverage it? Also, there's a way to meet program officers to do a capability debrief. So your experience. So depending on what is required in that solicitation, so if you have the relevant experience, yes, you want to make sure that you include that if it is asked for. Okay, you do want to make sure that you are providing that as well. And remember, depending on the type of solicitation, specifically if it's an RFP, they're looking at best overall. Okay, and it's like, how do we best leverage that? Again, depending on what their requirements are, how are you telling your story? How are you letting the state of Virginia know, based on that solicitation, how you're able to provide that service? How are you going to solve our problem? How are you going to implement what it is that we're asking you for? And is there a way to meet program offices to do a capability debrief? So I'm thinking, is it if you bid and you don't win, are you able to reach back out to a buyer for a debrief? We highly recommend that. So if you bid on a solicitation and you don't win, reach back out to the buyer and request a debrief. And there's a process for that. Again, I'm not a buyer, but getting a debrief also helps you to learn why you did not get that certification. I mean, why you did not win that bid as well. Okay. We currently run an LLC that's a group care home for seniors. My wife just completed the aid training for becoming assistant living administrator. We anticipated change with our entity status from LLC to C Corp. How would that change, alter the application format? So if you are changing the format or the structure of your business, you do want to notify us, because what happens is that if you want to be recognized under your SWaM as a corporation, as opposed to an LLC, you do have to submit something called a notice of change form. And with that are the documents to support that change. So that is a change that will need to be made. And you will be asked for any documents, additional documents to support that change from an LLC over to a corporation. Okay?
All right, I'm gonna say pick one more and
Okay.
we'll wrap up because we are about out of time here.
Can you be a newly registered business and bid on EVA contracts, or do you need a minimum number of years in business? It depends on the requirements of the solicitation. Okay, and so if it is for janitorial, I'm just using an example, and they may want someone who has 10 years in janitorial, managing janitorial or managing a site or multiple sites. So you have to read those solicitations to determine what is required for that particular job. Okay.
Great.
You
You want to do one more? Since
and it's saying
I'm answering some in the background too, so since
yeah.
Chris had to go.
So for instance, I'm a brand new and don't have past performance. The same thing. Would this impact my opportunity to win bids? If the experience is required, yes. Yes, it will. So again, depending on what it is they're looking for, a certain amount of experience may be required. Read the solicitation thoroughly to determine that. Okay.
I'm gonna cut us off here. Anyone who did not get your question answered, if you know which of these ladies, Chris or Angela, can help you, you can send an email directly to them. Angela's info, I think, is up on the screen right now, and I dropped Chris's in the chat. If you're uncertain, you can send an email to help@virginiasbdc.org. Let me know where you're located, and I can get you connected with the correct SBSD advisor to get your questions answered. Does that sound good, Angela?
Sounds good. Yes.
Cover it. Okay. Do you have any last words of wisdom before I wrap us up?
Just want to say, make sure that you dot the I's and cross the T's. Always. Experience, it goes a long way. Again, just to answer those questions. As a new business, you want to make sure that you have experience running your business. If you just got a business license today, you've never sold anything, you don't have a marketing strategy, you've never marketed, you don't have customers, it's going to be really hard to navigate selling to any level of government if you've not sold anything or have the experience as a business selling goods or services. And I mean, we do this every day. And so that's one of the key pieces to being successful. And you also want to make sure we're buying what you're selling.
Angela, thank you so much. This was a wonderful presentation as always. And give Chris my thanks too for being in the background. I know she had to go to another meeting. And thank you all for attending, for joining us today. As a reminder, you are going to receive an email with a link to this recording, and you'll have a copy of the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And as a reminder, if you have questions, you don't know who to direct them to, go ahead and send an email to help for that too, and I'll get you connected with SBSD. And we thank you all again for being here and look forward to seeing you at our next session. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.